So a lot of people struggle playing in different keys, but I'm going to show you some really easy ways to play in any key you want, and we're going to use chords that you already know. So let's dive in. All right, so I'm going to show you 3 different ways to play in any key, and I'm also going to show you several variations of these. The most common way people play in any key is they use their bar chord. So the way we find a bar chord is we take this E shape, but we play it with these 3 fingers, and this finger lays across the strings so that as you move it up, this finger acts as this nut. So if we were to play an E, move it up 1 fret, we get an F. Again, we get an F sharp. 3rd fret, we get a G sharp, A, and we can move this anywhere along the fretboard and play any chord that we want. Now, if we come up here to the 5th fret and make our bar chord, we get an A chord. So let's just stay here for a second. We played this bar chord and we say that we're in the key of A, so that A is going to be our 1 chord. If we make this bar chord shape, now we get our 4 chord. So we're just laying our finger flat. And if we move this up 2 frets, we get our 5 chord. So that's a really easy way to play your 1, your 4, and your 5 chord. Now, a lot of y'all struggle with making bar chords. Not that you can't play them, but maybe you have wrist issues, or just holding a bar chord that long hurts your hand. There is another way to do this. So if we come back down here like we were playing a bar chord and we move it up 1 fret, so we're playing this F bar chord. If you think about it, we don't have to hold our finger all the way across all these strings. We can just hold the B and the E string, and now this should be a shape that seems familiar to you. This is your F chord. So wherever you're playing your bar chord, you can play your F chord, and it's the same thing. Now we're not going to be hitting this, this low E string. We're only going to be hitting the strings that we're holding down. But anywhere that you can play your bar chord shape, you can also just play this F shape. So once again, if I come up here to the 5th fret and play my F shape, this is an A chord. I can also play that 4 chord just by laying my finger flat. Now I'm only going to be playing the D, the G, and the B string, because those are the ones I'm holding down. But this would be my 4 chord. I can move this up 2, and I can get my 5 chord. Now, we might want to play more strings than just these 3. So one way that we can kind of make this chord a little fuller is by adding the 3rd and the bass. So we're going to lay our finger flat with our pointer finger, and with our ring finger, we're going to hold the A string 2 frets up from where we're laying our finger flat, and we get this shape. Now this is just an A chord with the 3rd and the bass, but you don't have to get down in the weeds about what this is actually called. We just know that if we make this shape, we can play a fuller version of this A chord shape. So here, if we were playing our F on our 5th fret, we get our 1 chord. We can come up here and play our 4 chord in this shape, and then we move this up 2 frets and we can play our 5 chord. So our 1 chord, you can even slide this up to get to your 4 chord, slide it up again 2 frets to get your 5 chord. So that's a pretty easy way to play your 1, your 4, and your 5 chord in any key, and you don't have to make these bar chord shapes. You can just do it with, sort of simple patterns that are easy to move around. Now there is another option you have for going to your 5 chord. So once again, I was playing my F shape here, and I was getting my 1 chord. I can play my 4 chord here, come back and play my 1 chord, and then I can make a C7 shape, and I can play my 5 chord. Now I haven't moved from where I played my 1, so I play my 1, my C7 shape makes my 5 chord, and then back to my 1. So that makes it really easy, especially if you just lay your finger flat. Now I'm playing my 4 chord, back to my 1 chord, and make that C7 shape, and now I get my 5 chord, and I've never had to move away from this fret. So that makes it really easy to play in any key. So let's use an example. Let's say I wanted to play in something like A flat. Well, I know here on the 5th fret, I get an A chord. And the way you're finding these bar chords is you're finding your note on your E string. So I went E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and A. So on my 5th fret, I get an A chord. So if I want to play an A flat, I come here to where I would play my A chord, and I go this way, 1 fret, and now I get A flat. So now I have my 1 chord, A flat, lay my finger flat, I can get my 4 chord, back to my 1 chord, and now I make this C7 shape and I can get my 5 chord. So in A flat, that would be, A flat would be your 1 chord. Remember, you can also come up here and play a fuller 4 chord. This would be your D flat, back to my A flat, my 5 chord is my E flat, and then back to my A flat, or back to my 1. So you can move this around and play in any key. So another way that you can play in any key is to play around this A shape. Now, we're just holding our finger flat, but remember, we're adding this 4th fret here on the A string, or you're just going to go 2 frets up from wherever you're holding your finger flat. So we're playing this shape, and we can move this anywhere. And the way you find your note here is on the G string. So obviously with your finger laid flat here on the 2nd fret, that's an A chord. On the dot here on the 5th fret, we get a C. The next dot we get a D. The next dot we get an E. So now we can kind of find any chord that we want because we know that on the dots is C, D, and E. So remember though, we're going to be holding this finger right here so that we can play more of the strings and get that fuller sound. So let's take this up to the 5th fret. This would make a C chord. And if I take this finger, I'm going to move it down this way 1 fret, and I'm going to add my middle finger right here on the B string. Now I get my 4 chord. So I had my 1 chord, make this shape, I get my 4 chord. And just like any of the other systems, if you move this 4 chord up 2 frets, now we get our 5 chord. So our 1 chord, our 4 chord, and our 5 chord, and back to the 1. Now there's another way, once again, to play your 5 chords. You've got your 1 chord here, your 4 chord here, and you can do your 5 chord by making your F shape and going this way 2 frets. So moving down 2 frets and playing your F shape will also make your 5 chord. So you can either make this shape and move it up 2 frets, or you can make this F shape down 2 frets. It's really up to you, whatever's most comfortable to you. So we've got a 1 chord, a 4 chord, a 5 chord, and back to the 1. So once again, that's a really easy system to be able to play in any key that you want. So we were playing in C here on the 5th fret. So let's say I wanted to play in something like D flat. So that's kind of a strange key to play in. Well, I know this is C. I know that my next dot is D, so D flat would be moving this way 1 fret. So I move that down 1 fret, and now I've got my D flat chord. Now I've got my G flat chord, that's my 4 chord. I can either move this up 2 frets to get my A flat or my 5 chord, or remember I was here, I can move down 2 frets and play my F shape, and now I've got my 5 chord. So my 1 chord, my 4 chord, my 5 chord, and back to my 1 chord. So you can move this around again and play in any key. It's a really simple system to find your 1, 4, and 5. Another really easy way to play in any key is around this D shape. Now when you're playing this D chord, keep in mind that you're only playing, these bottom 3 strings, the G, the B, and the E string, because those are the ones you're holding down. So let's think about taking this D shape and I move it up 2 frets. This would give me an E chord. So from here, that would be my 1 chord. If I make this F shape and move it up 1 fret, that gives me my 4 chord, back to my 1 chord, and my 5 chord, you can take this F shape and move it all the way up, 2 above your 4 chord, and that would give you your 5 as usual. But there's an easier way to do this. So we have our 1 chord here. Our 4 chord is our F shape moved up 1 fret, back to our 1, and then if we just lay our finger flat and play that A chord shape that we've been playing right there in the same spot, that would be our 5 chord. So our 1 chord, our 4 chord, our 1 chord, our 5 chord, and then back to the 1. So once again, we can use this system to play in any key. So I was in E here, and let's say I wanted to play an E flat. I would just move it this way, 1 fret, and now I've got an E flat. Move up 1 fret and play my F shape. Now I've got my 4 chord or my A flat. Come back here to my 1 chord or my E flat. Then I can just lay my finger flat, and now I'm playing a B flat chord, and then back to my 1 chord. So my 1, my 4, my 1, my 5, and back to my 1 chord. So these are really easy ways to move around the neck and not only play in any key, but you can also play any chord. Because I know a lot of y'all, you hear a chord like A flat or E flat or B flat, and you say, well, I don't know how to play that chord. Well, I've just showed you several different ways to play these chords that you might run across. Or if a song's too high to sing in, say D, you can now move it down to, D flat or B flat or some key that might be easier to sing it in. And you really don't have to worry about, finding these strange chords. We're just using simple chord shapes that we already know, moving them around, and now you're able to play in any key. So I really do hope this helps. And as always, if you need something, just reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you.